The UFC has been rolling out some pretty big fights recently. Benoit Saint Denis versus Mauricio Ruffy, Carlos Ulberg versus Dominick Reyes, and they have also done something pretty controversial as well recently, and that is releasing 7-1 heavyweight prospect Martin Buday. And I've got a lot to say about that, so that's what we're going to be discussing in this video. But the first thing that we're going to get to is Benoit Saint Denis versus Mauricio Ruffy. Everybody is saying that Benoit Saint Denis is cooked, and he's got no shot to win this. He's too sloppy. Mauricio Ruffy is a sharpshooter. He's the Brazilian McGregor, and essentially he's walking into a fight that he can't win. And I understand that, this is not going to come as that much of a surprise because I have picked Benoit Saint Denis to win every single fight that he's ever had. Even though technically I didn't pick him to beat Joel Alvarez, but that fight got canceled and I ended up picking him to beat the last can that he fought on the Canada card. But you guys get my point. Every fight that's actually took place, I have picked Benoit Saint Denis to win, even though I will admit that I was wrong about his ceiling. He is not a guy that I still think is going to be challenging for a title. I think he may be the worst person in the rankings next to Michael Chandler. All of that being said, the thing is, because as soon as this fight was announced, everybody is saying that Mauricio Ruffy is going to win this by any way he wants. R.I.P. Benoit Saint Denis. Everybody is so certain that this is a one-sided fight. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I don't see why people are hyping up Mauricio Ruffy as much as they are. I think he's super overrated, but it's because he's not proven a lot of things that you should have to prove before people start talking about you as someone that's going to beat Ilia Topuria. Okay? I've heard the Weasel say that Ruffy, or maybe it wasn't the Weasel, but I've heard people say shit like Ruffy versus Topuria is the future mega fight. Dude, we need to pump the brakes. For fans to be talking about Mauricio Ruffy as like someone that's going to potentially be Topuria's toughest test when he's only fought absolute fucking cans and he's not proven grappling whatsoever is sort of what I'm getting at here. Yes, with the eye test, Mauricio Ruffy is extremely impressive. He's super fast. His distance management is awesome. His accuracy is amazing. His power is great. His technique is phenomenal. And he has aura. And I understand that, but let's not act like we weren't once hyping up Benoit Saint Denis because of his aura. Now, we were hyping him up because he was a different kind of fighter, a heavy pressure wrestler, and he's not very technical on the feet like Mauricio Ruffy is. But the point that I'm making is this is a fight where he's up against a fighter that is going to force him to prove what he's never had to prove before. And we do not know how good Mauricio Ruffy is going to be on the ground. We don't know if Mauricio Ruffy is going to be able to hold up when it comes to his cardio after having grappled for a round or being forced to grapple. I mean, listen, he could go out there and stuff the takedowns easily. Okay, he could shuck Benoit Saint Denis off of him because, listen, people that he trains with, Gene Silva, Cal Baraujo, people that are a part of that Fighting Nerds team have shown really good grappling. But, listen, Abu Bakr trained with Khabib, okay? Every amazing fighter has training partners that you're never going to hear of that aren't that good. Dude, Volkanovski trains with Jamie Malarkey. Jamie Malarkey is an absolute can, and that happens to be one of the cans that Mauricio Ruffy has slept. Does that mean, but Jamie Malarkey, when you talk about Jamie Malarkey fights, are you saying, well, he trains with Volk, so he's got to be well-rounded? No, you don't say that. You don't say that. And I know that Ruffy, you could assume that his grappling is decent, but it's an assumption. You don't actually know. And I know that some people are maybe saying, well, what are you saying? I mean, Gene Silva, Mauricio Ruffy showed his grappling on the Contender Series against Bamalam, bro. He showed his grappling in the Cage Warriors against Mogadayev Muziev, bro. And it's okay, yeah, but that's not the big leagues, okay? I don't care if he's been able to stuff takedowns against Joe Schmo in the amateur leagues. This is the UFC, and he's not proven it in the UFC, okay? But again, we talk about Mauricio Ruffy. He's facing a heavy pressure grappler. He is a fighter and an athlete, a specific kind of athlete that, because he's explosive, slows down. And he's shown us that he slows down in his fights. Similar to McGregor, insofar as McGregor, because he's a very explosive athlete, once he's thrown like 20 strikes and he's thrown them really hard and really fast, he is a different fighter in the second round. He's a different fighter in the third round. And we've seen that when Mauricio Ruffy doesn't get his clip farming KOs against the biggest cans and the guy with the worst chin. Listen, let's just be honest about the Bobby Green fight. Bobby Green has the worst chin in the UFC. I think Mauricio Ruffy would have KO'd him if he just nudged him in the clinch. And I'm talking about if they were to be in the clinch and Mauricio Ruffy were to literally just nudge his face away from him, that shit would have KO'd Bobby Green. All right? Yes, the spinning wheel kick. Unbelievable, man. That spinning wheel kick was amazing. But, like, let's not act like we're predicting Corey Sandhagen to flying knee everyone just because he's flying kneed one guy, Frankie Edgar, into oblivion. You're not predicting Corey Sandhagen spinning wheel kick KO just because he spinning wheel kicked Marlon Moraes. I don't think that it's a safe bet to pick Ruffy because of a spinning wheel kick KO. Like, he would have KO'd Bobby Green no matter what, right? He would have KO'd him no matter what. But the point that I'm making with Bobby Green is that a couple of years ago, that KO would have meant something. Now, dude, you could put away Bobby Green with the jab. He got dropped 5 times against Jim Miller. Mauricio Ruffy has taken out nothing but cans, and it reminds me of the hype that Benoit was getting before the Poirier fight. And what I'm telling you guys is I've learned my lesson. I've learned my lesson not to rush a prospect. Because, you want to be the guy that's saying, well, I was there from the start, man. And people are getting to say that about Joshua Van. They're still predicting Joshua Van to win fights, and that's great. And it feels great to be right about a fighter's career since, they were a tadpole. Well, I was right about their debut. I was right about the next fight and the next fight and the next fight. But there was a time where Benoit Saint Denis was getting predicted to beat Dustin Poirier. And I know people want to sit there and act like I was the only one saying that, but I wasn't. There were a lot of people that may have not even been picking Benoit Saint Denis to beat Dustin Poirier, but the majority of people were saying that it was going to be a really close fight. Fast forward a couple of years, Benoit Saint Denis is talked about as the worst fighter in the rankings by far. Okay? But remember how many people were saying Benoit Saint Denis is a nightmare matchup for Dustin Poirier. Benoit Saint Denis versus Makhachev is going to feed families, bro. It's going to feed families, bro. Remember that? Remember that. It kind of reminds me of another can crusher. And to be fair, Benoit Saint Denis had beat better levels of competition than Ruffy. At least Benoit Saint Denis had a win over Ismail Bonfim and had a win over, Matt Frivola. Matt Frivola would absolutely murk Jamie Malarkey. Like, Bobby Green in 2025 is the chinniest fighter since James Vick. Like, the wins that he's getting are the ultimate can wins. Benoit Saint Denis may have been beating, like, people that aren't that good, but they weren't the ultimate cans. And so just remember, there was a time where people were talking about Benoit versus Makhachev would be sick, bro. Yeah? Well, what about Ruffy? Oh, man, Ruffy would sleep Justin Gaethje. And this is the thing. This is another thing that people fall into. It's another trap. The technical trap. The technical trap. Fiziev is going to school Gaethje. Right? Because Fiziev looks so slick in everything that he does. But then you find out fighting is more than just looking slick. Okay? It's a big part of it. I think that Ruffy has got a higher ceiling than Benoit. Right? But my point is, I don't know if he's going to win this fight. I don't know. I can't say confidently that he's got a higher ceiling. We don't know. What's his physicality going to be like when he's got a big lightweight grappler who is going to be crashing in, trying to take him down up against the fence, like a physical grappler, heavy pressure style? Is he the kind of fighter that can deal with that? Is he the kind of guy that already, because of his style and the kind of athlete that he is, if he slows down in a 3-round striking battle versus James Yontop, maybe he's going to slow down massively after 1 round of grappling against Benoit Saint Denis. Now, again, we don't know if his takedown defense is going to hold up. It could. It could hold up. And he could very easily school Benoit Saint Denis if it does. Even if he does get taken down in the first round and slows down, Benoit Saint Denis is so hittable, and he's got such terrible defense, and he's so slow with the way that he throws punches, that could still leave openings for a tired Ruffy to knock him out up against the fence in the second round. But the point that I'm making is maybe Ruffy wilts. Maybe Ruffy gets beat by decision. Maybe Ruffy gets tired and gets finished. I'm just saying, I don't know if this is such a clear-cut fight, because it's almost as if, you know, people are thinking that, like, oh, Ruffy's going to catch Benoit so easily. But, like, is it going to be in the first 30 seconds? He didn't catch... I know Jamie Mullarkey wasn't trying to close the distance and shoot a takedown, but the Jamie Mullarkey fight went past 30 seconds. The Bobby Green fight, you know, went past 30 seconds. The point that I'm making is Benoit Saint Denis is going to try to take him down as soon as the fight starts. I think it's likely that Benoit Saint Denis gets to attempt a takedown up against the fence before Mauricio Ruffy gets to KO him. I think it's a lot more likely that we see a takedown attempt up against the fence versus a Mauricio Ruffy flatline KOing Benoit Saint Denis 20 seconds into a fight. And the point is, because it's likely that that takedown attempt is going to happen, there are a lot of things that Mauricio Ruffy has not shown us. And I'm just saying, he's beaten nothing but cans, and he's fought nothing but people that are going to strike with him. And yes, he trains with Gene Silva, who's a good grappler. Yeah, he comes from the same gym as Cal Barajo. And you could assume that his grappling is decent, but, I mean, listen, Benoit Saint Denis getting beaten by Renato Moicano, getting beat up on the ground, that's Renato Moicano. He is a grappler for the most part. He's a predominant grappler, right? Benoit Saint Denis, Dustin Poirier. Poirier is a more proven grappler than Mauricio Ruffy. Poirier's a dog. He's got cardio. He's got physicality. He's got grit. He's got toughness. He doesn't wilt in fights. We don't know that about Mauricio Ruffy. There's a lot of things that we don't know. And I think this fight is a lot more interesting than people may be giving it credit for. And again, I don't know who I'm going to pick. Maybe I'm going to rewatch Benoit Saint Denis' fights, and I'll see that, oh man, this guy is so hittable. And then I'll rewatch Ruffy versus James Yontop, and I'll be like, you know, he sort of slowed down, but not as much as I had remembered. And maybe I'll end up picking him. But I'm just saying, it's close. I think that you shouldn't be super confident that this is already in the bag for Ruffy. Again, he's a bit of an aura merchant at the moment. He's a bit of an aura merchant. I think you take away Mauricio Ruffy's McGregor haircut and McGregor-like beard and McGregor-like karate stance, and now I'm starting to sound like Anthony Smith. You take away his techniques. I'm not saying you take away his techniques, but I think if he doesn't look a little bit like McGregor, I think he has less hype. Okay? Now, maybe only a little bit less hype, because his style is still very amazing, and his style is similar to McGregor. And the reason why it's impressive is because McGregor had an impressive style. I mean, it's not just that it's like McGregor. It's that McGregor had a sick style that brought him to a world championship status fighter. You know what I mean? Like, so I understand it, but I'm just saying, could be interesting. Could be interesting. And I don't think this is a, you know, Benoit, just put the fries in the bag, bro, time yet. Like, I don't know if Benoit Saint Denis is going to be working at Burger King after this one necessarily. He might be coming off of a win. We never know. We never know, man. We never know, dude. So we got to see. We got to wait and see. But yeah, this is a great fight. It's a sick fight. I'm not going to sit there and act like Ruffy can't win if he doesn't get the first 30-second KO. Maybe he wins and he gets out-grappled in the first round and still wins. Or maybe he stuffs the takedowns effortlessly and has like brick wall takedown defense. We will see. We shall see. But it's a good fight. It's a sick fight. And there's a chance that Benoit can win this in the later rounds. So I'm really looking forward to this. Let's get on to Ulberg versus Reyes. We're all rooting for Dominick Reyes. You know, it's interesting because people do not like Carlos Ulberg, and I think the reason is because he has no aura. Now, why does he have no aura? He doesn't really have an entertaining style. Carlos Ulberg, despite having a couple of KOs, okay, most of those KOs have been kind of anticlimactic, first off. All right, I'm talking about like a 10-second KO, first 10 seconds of a fight. You know, people have this take that that's not anticlimactic. You're saying a KO 10 seconds into a fight isn't anticlimactic. Okay, maybe if it's McGregor versus Aldo, it's not. But, like, sometimes it is kind of anticlimactic. Like, you want to see a couple of exchanges, okay? So most of his KOs are kind of anticlimactic. And then a lot of his fights, he's gone to decision, and they're just kind of shitty fights. Like, they're just not entertaining. Like, people don't really get badly hurt in Carlos Ulberg fights. I remember the first fight he had in the UFC, it was actually entertaining, but he got slept because I guess he expended a lot of energy and sort of gassed himself out. And since then, he's changed his style to where if he doesn't walk you on to a left hook KO, which is very rare for Carlos Ulberg now that he's actually facing higher levels of competition, he's much more careful. He's kind of on that like Adesanya in the middle of Adesanya's title reign when he was fighting Vettori kind of mode, where he doesn't take a lot of risks and his fights are just boring as fuck. That's what it is. He has no aura because he's not a trash talker, right? And he doesn't have an entertaining style. So people don't want to see Carlos Auraless Ulberg reach the top of the division, and they're rooting for Dominick Reyes. And I'm rooting for Dominick Reyes because if Reyes wins this, that's a 4-fight win streak, since being talked about as the most tragic fighter in UFC history. He's the guy with the worst downfall ever, getting robbed by John Jones and then getting brutally KO'd 3 times in a row. If Dominick Reyes wins this, he deserves a title shot, right? I still think I want to see Yuri Prohaska fight for the title if he beats Khalil Roundtree, but either way, you could have 2 fighters in reserve for title shots, and Dominick Reyes would be one of them. And I think he's going to win this fight. I'm just going to get to my early prediction. I think that Dominick Reyes is going to win this fight. Sure, he could get slept, okay? Because Carlos Ulberg could catch him with a left hook, but I think that the way that Ulberg's been fighting against higher levels of competition, it's a decision-like style. And I think Dominick Reyes has got his confidence back. He's making people pay that are making mistakes. He's really good at making people pay that make mistakes. I'm literally just quoting Dominick Reyes from this fucking interview he did with Cejudo and Kamaru Usman. I'm trying to sound like smart with my analysis, but that was literally what Reyes said. He says, I'm just really good at making people pay. Now, it's true, man. Reyes is good at making people pay. Okay? And I think Reyes is going to sleep him out cold, man. I'm rooting for Reyes. I think he's going to sleep Ulberg. I'm counting on that left hook landing. Now, the problem with Reyes has always been that he doesn't have a lot of tools in his tool bag. He kind of relies on that left hand landing. And there are some high-level fighters that can sort of evade that for 3 rounds, and if they do, they can win. So maybe Ulberg will be really slick. But then again, a win over Jan Blachowicz, that looks great on paper, but Jan Blachowicz was actually washed. Like, that was the first time. And, you know, there's going to be some people that are coming at me saying, oh, so when Max Holloway loses to Ilya, he's not washed. But when Blachowicz loses to Ulberg, he's washed. Yeah, actually, you can use the fucking eye test. You can actually use the fucking eye test. Jan Blachowicz looked like shit in the last Ulberg fight. Some people thought he won. I don't. No matter what you think the decision should have been or should have gone to, he looked like shit. And Ulberg beating a washed-up Jan Blachowicz is not as impressive as just, you know, what you would normally think of as a win over Jan Blachowicz. Wow, that's really good. So I got Reyes. I think he's going to knock out Carlos Ulberg. I think he's more lethal. So, yeah. And I think he's got a lot of momentum, man. So we're all rooting for Reyes. But let's get on to the Martin Buday situation. Martin Buday, 7-1 in the UFC. The only person who he has lost to is Shamil the Blob Gaziev, which is actually kind of crazy because, you know, we joke around about Shamil, but Shamil beat this guy, and this guy has beaten every other person that he's fought, okay, which is very impressive. But I saw this from Tony Has Died, this meme. Dana cuts Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who is literally only lost to the best in the division, and actually has, unlike Buday, potential to KO people brutally. But he gets cut. Why does he get cut? I guess the logic there was maybe they were paying him too much and they felt like he wasn't really entertaining enough to be worth that. But, you know, maybe they were thinking, man, this guy keeps fraud checking people that are promising. It's, you know, he keeps fraud checking people that are going to be challenging Tom Aspinall and John Jones. But, like, come on, dude. If they're not getting past Jairzinho Rozenstruik, they would never even fight for the title to begin with because they're not getting past Gane. They're not getting past Volkov. It makes no sense to cut one of the only actual dangerous heavyweights. Like, Jairzinho Rozenstruik represents, like, And this is crazy that we have to say this when it comes to the heavyweight division, because these guys are all like 240 plus pounds. You would think that the heavyweight division is filled with killers with KO power. But you cut Jairzinho Rozenstruik and you only really have like 5 fighters with true KO power, and every other heavyweight, and this is going to get to why I think they cut Martin Buday, every other heavyweight is just bringing 3-round slop fests where they're all truly middleweights. They're all middleweights that are way too fat, and they do not have the discipline to cut down, and they're comfortable with walking around super flabby. They're middleweights and heavyweight flabs, and they don't carry the same power as actual heavyweights like Rozenstruik, like Aspinall. I mean, Gane doesn't have a lot of power, but he's a real heavyweight, right? Volkov is a real heavyweight. The point that I'm making is the reason why they cut Buday is because he was boring, and he was getting these 3-round slop fests. But, you know, let's not sit there and act like, oh, Buday was a real prospect. He wasn't really a prospect. But it is kind of weird that they cut him after being 7-1. I feel like Martin Buday could have been their new Arlovsky. And I'm not comparing him to Arlovsky's greatness, because Arlovsky was once a champion. But there was a time in the heavyweight division in 2020 when Andrei Arlovsky was like a gatekeeper outside of the top 12, right? You'd have Arlovsky, and there was a time where Arlovsky had like, you know, a 7-fight streak where he had only lost 1 out of 7 fights, and that one loss was to Tom Aspinall. Like, Arlovsky was doing work. And I feel like Buday is kind of assuming that role. He's kind of going into that role, and they got rid of him. I guess they're not looking for a gatekeeper outside of the top 15. But I don't know. It's weird because the heavyweight division is just so shallow, not only with talent, but just with fighters in general. I mean, I'll just say this. If you are somebody that is, you know, 6'3", 6'4", and you're naturally a big person, like you're not like skin and bones, honestly, you want to be a fucking UFC fighter? I think you can make it. I'm just going to say this. Like, I think I could be a heavyweight. I'm just going to be honest here. Like, listen, I am 5'8", okay? I am about 175 pounds. I'm very lean right now, so I might actually be less than that. But I think if you're looking at some of these heavyweights, let's be honest. Martin Buday, he's a pretty big guy, but some of these heavyweights, they're like 6'2", nothing but flab. Like, in order for them to get to my body fat, they would have to get down to 175 pounds. Like, some of these guys wouldn't truly be shredded. Who's someone that's shredded? Like, JDM is shredded, right? When he cuts weight to 170. Some of these heavyweights could not get to Jack Della Maddalena's body fat that he's at when he's stepping on the scales. Okay? Some of these heavyweights could not get to that body fat unless they got to like 175 pounds. Because let's not act like these guys have a lot of muscle, right? Martin Buday, he might have, you know, some muscle. He might be shredded at like 185, 190 maybe. But some of these heavyweights are even flabbier than that. And so what I'm saying is, you give me 5 years of dirty bulking, you give me 5 years of eating 5 full meals a day, I'm going to be 210 plus pounds. I think I could get to a big flabby 215. I think I could, like, listen, I could get on a more serious strength training routine. So I'm going to be gaining muscle. I already have a good amount of muscle because I'm very lean. I'm lean and mean at like my body weight. If I put on another 15 pounds of muscle over the course of 5 years, and it's easier to put on 15 pounds of muscle than you think when you're gaining a fuckload of fat and you're trying to put on 60 pounds, I could fight a heavyweight. I think I can maybe make the heavyweight division, and I've got the lighter man skill because I'm like DC. You know, DC, when he moved up from light heavyweight to heavyweight, he had that Speedy Gonzalez boxing of a lighter man. And if Daniel Cormier can be champion, I think I could at least make it onto the Dana White Contender Series. I'm sorry, but I've seen some of these heavyweights fight, and they're just so bad. Like, they're so terrible. I feel like you give some of these heavyweights my speed. Put like Deontay Wilder. How much does he weigh? Deontay Wilder weighs like 215. I mean, me at 215 would be different than Deontay Wilder because I'd be a little bit fatter, to be honest. But I think me at 215 pounds, if, you know, some of these heavyweights are so bad. Like, am I going to beat Talison Teixeira? No. But could I put myself in a position where I'm fighting Talison Teixeira? Maybe. Okay? Like, I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think. I think that, you know, maybe I can make the heavyweight division. But the point that I'm making is, and then hold on. This is very important. I have a better chance to be a UFC heavyweight. I have a better chance to say to people in 5 years, I'm a UFC heavyweight, than I do to say I'm a middleweight, because the middleweight division is actually talent stacked, and the people in the middleweight division are actually bigger. The point that I'm making is, like, some of these heavyweights are so out of shape, they're so non-athletic, and they're so lacking in skill that someone like me with rusty kickboxing, if I were to train MMA for 5 years straight and just dirty bulk and lift weights, I think I could maybe compete, at least show up in the octagon and maybe go 1-3 in the UFC and then get cut. Yeah, I think that the heavyweight division is so shallow that if you are someone that is not 5'8", like if you're like 6'2", and you're not skin and bones, like you actually have some density, why not try your luck and sleep some of these heavyweights? Seriously, like, I mean, you could do it. Now, again, people are going to say, because I don't want to be an MMA fighter and I don't want to take brain damage, and I understand that, right? Like, because essentially you could make it to the heavyweight division, and if you're not going to become champ or like someone that's in the top 5 for 10 years, you're not going to make that much money. So I understand that. Just because it's easy to make the heavyweight division doesn't mean it's easy to be like a top 5 heavyweight. Like, those guys are actually good, and you know, most people are never going to beat Tom Aspinall, but yeah, you know, try your luck. And hey, they're cutting people like Martin Buday, and they're keeping people that are even worse than him. So yeah, I know that they just cut Muhammad Usman, but yeah, the heavyweight division is such a tragedy because it's so pathetic. Like, nobody that's actually big wants to compete in MMA, right? That's actually pretty interesting. And there's not a lot of people that are heavyweight size to begin with. And maybe that's what the people at heavyweight are doing. Like, people are going to say that I'm wrong on my take about me making heavyweight. And okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but look at some of these heavyweights. They may have the same idea that I have. Like, some of these heavyweights look like welterweights that are just super fat, right? Just like flabby welterweights that just let themselves go. Maybe a lot of the heavyweights in the UFC division have actually purposefully done what I'm saying I could do. So shout out to them, I guess. But yeah, the heavyweight division, it's a tragedy. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time.